again, my name is Davidek Herron, and I work with Teva Pharmaceuticals. So for today's presentation, even go back to yesterday, I did make that question to the panel, right? If we did nothing, what would happen in the next 3 to 5 years? So actually, based on yesterday's content, I actually tailored my content today to not be much industry facts, because we all can read that on LinkedIn, but more so my story, my strategy, or our story, our strategy, and kind of practically what use cases do we do to get to where we're at now. So ideally, it kind of goes back to, I work in a very beautiful space. I love healthcare, I love working with patients, love working with healthcare professionals and pharmacists. Again, when having conversations with my kids, what does daddy do, right? It's school day. They think I work in like this great environment. We do all this AI, machine learning, robots are flying in with medicine, helping patients. But sometimes the reality is, this is my day at work, right? It's really like, we try to do all these great things, but sometimes the background infrastructure really won't support what we're trying to do. To give you some pure cases there, some of our first initial AI projects we initiated, we figured out we couldn't even do a sprint 1 or 2 because we didn't have the background infrastructure, right? We didn't have that 360 view of that customer. So we had to be really selective on kind of what we did and where we started. But kind of the reason why I show this image is this is somewhat the reality, but it doesn't have to be the norm. And you have to start somewhere. So you start with 1 wire, 2 wires, 3 wires, and next thing you know, you will have a fully working, let's say, background infrastructure. So today I want to tell you around a story. Today's story is going to be around our transformation at Teva Pharmaceuticals. As you know, we've gone through some ups and downs, right? Some good acquisitions, some bad. So really the activity we do at Teva is really focused around how can we generate beneficial, let's say, how can we get more medicines to patients? But also we have a goal of how can we be the easiest company to do business with? So before we talk about business, we have 3 different models at Teva. We have either our generics, we're the largest generic manufacturer of medicines in the world, where we do a lot of B2B, so direct to pharmacy, direct to wholesalers and hospitals. We have OTC brands as well, and we also have specialty. And I have the fortunate ability to work across all 3 of those business models in multiple countries within Europe and international markets. So one shoe doesn't fit all, but ideally our strategy has to align or scale across multiple platforms. But before we start with any vision, it's kind of, we talked about people yesterday. People is really a key driver around all this success. Our people have to understand where are we going, where are we driving to? And I like to call this a BHAG. What is your big, hairy, audacious goal? If you talk to anyone at my company, really, if they ask me, what's Davidek's big, hairy, audacious goal? It's truly, how do we automate our sales and marketing verticals within the next 3 to 5 years to truly get more medicines to patients, right? That's a lot, right? So how do we do that? How do we potentially guide our marketeers to do the next best action, our sales teams to derive the next best product base for our customers? But this is where we're driving, and within that, I'll show you kind of the small steps we're taking to get to that big vision, again, of really truly automating the sales and marketing verticals. So, from my learnings, again, this is around the realities, what worked and what didn't. And I think that's the best way to learn is to show you kind of where do we start and what's our approach. In the past, literally, we would have these great partnerships, and we would think, all right, we want to build a Rolls Royce or Mercedes. Let's start building the wheels. Let's take that different approach. But ideally what we learn is you have to start small, right? And sometimes you want to hear that or see that. And our vendors, honestly, I love you guys, but sometimes you push us to that big, fast car right away. But what we're seeing is at Teva, we're taking an approach where we're starting small, but each step, we're actually seeing business impact. If we can't quantify that business impact right off the bat, typically we won't invest in kind of those projects. And again, it comes around the customer experience, from awareness to re-engagement of your customers, and I'll talk a little bit about this later. But really, our learnings is really start small, eventually you'll build that great car, and your customers will be more happy in the long end. So this is a really interesting slide. In the past, we used to always focus on moonshots, or fluffy digital, I like to call it. By fluffy digital, we work with our agencies where you have some great, next Pharma award-winning projects, but does it really get more medicines to patients? Is it really impacting your business? It's great for, I think, a career resume, but fortunately, actually, and unfortunately, in our current culture or situation at Teva, we don't have the luxury really to focus on fluffy digital anymore. And moonshots, we're open to hearing them, but really, we're trying to focus on this middle quadrant, right? Really, what's going to add financial value to our business today, but it's also not as easy to get as well. So we're really focusing on this middle quadrant, and stepping away from the IB Watsons of the world, and really taking a step back and understanding what can we do today to really control some of our direct or indirect S&M spends. And for context as well, I do work for digital transformation for our company. It's really business transformation. This encompasses everything from commercial to finance. R&D we're not doing as much in yet, because that's a whole nother space, but TGO manufacturing, we're doing stuff there as well. But for today's focus, I will be focusing on the commercialization side. But again, this slide means a lot to me because, again, I think it puts context on our people as well of, hey, let's chase these things that are not easy to get, but add value to the business now. But let's not worry about the moonshots and the fluffy. Let's really focus on today. Okay, so I like to show this slide because really it's around, again, it comes back kind of, is customer experience the new battleground, or has it always been in pharma? If you look at, this is the life-old example we always use, but in the past you have the taxi industries that focus on task, right? And you have new players like Uber that come in and really focus on meaningful, pleasurable, convenient, that really have that differentiator. But if you've been reading lately, even Elon Musk now is introducing Tesla service, and that's pretty much going to disrupt everything as well. But how does this look like for our sales reps, or our medical teams, really our people in the field? Can we potentially have that shift, or how do we make them more functional, reliable, usable, but meaningful as well? So really, how do we start providing the value to our customers? And there's some clear steps which I'll show that we're doing to get to here. So, I work with many companies, in countries, around the world, and we try to speak somewhat the same language in regards of what is transformation, what can we do to help you increase your business. So how the scenario works is, literally I'm flying off to Japan on Thursday. We go in, we work with the market, we understand, all right, we look at the LRP for the next 5 years, what is your direct, indirect S&M spends, what is your operating profit, gross to margin, gross to net, how many products are we promoting, which ones are loss makers, which ones are not. I mean, you really look at the numbers and understand, all right, the market wants to be a digital leader, what does that mean? So ideally what we do is we do assessment, and when we ever go to the market, we have around 6 or 7 digital levers that we propose and talk to the market. Whether it's channel mix optimization, so using data and platforms to drive the right channel mix. So this is your typical MCM, right? So maybe a country has a couple channels turned on, but they're not integrated, they don't have a 360 view of their customer. How can we potentially optimize that? Virtual remote selling, ideally, this does fit within channel mix, but just because it's, again, I've created Teva's first virtual selling team probably 6 years ago in the US. It still hurts me, we still talk about virtual meetings and do they work, do they not work, should our reps be doing virtual sales? But I pull this lever off in particular because, I mean, this is a key driver, it's a cultural change for a lot of our sales teams and medical teams. It's not the technology, we have many tools to use that work, but it's really the cultural shift of really getting our teams to be able to do that. And in certain situations, I'll give you a use case for virtual selling. We had to pretty much reorganize our sales forces and medical teams by less than 30-40%. So we have to make up that gap because top line is staying the same. Other things like self-service, B2B commerce, I'll give you a use case about this after, around how do we drive more of our customers to online platforms and self-service. So in the past we had a representative walking into a pharmacy or a doctor. Now we're driving them to a self-service platform. We have things like Service Cloud to support that kind of 360 kind of conversation. Smart product recommendations, we'll talk about this as well. This is kind of our AI arm, where we really have, we're recommending on the B2B side, smarter baskets, cross-selling, upselling, whether it's in the rep delivering it, or whether it's on our online platforms. And things like AI tenders and automation to drive effectiveness. So this, again, these are our 6 digital levers when we work with markets, how we actually, we go in. Again, as you can see on the right side, really these levers are meant to drive sales per customer engagement, lower the cost per engagement, extending customer reach, increase your gross margin. So again, we're not going in with fluffy digital, say, hey, let's do this great project. We're going with this is the issue we're facing. This is how you can potentially mitigate that gap. If not, it's a magic trick, right? You know, sales data increase, just S&M stays flat. How do you kind of fill that gap? It's kind of hard, right? So this is what we're proposing to a lot of countries, and this is when, again, when we speak to them, and within each one of these buckets, it can be different for each country, what specifically we do. So I want to talk about a couple use cases now and kind of how we manage this at Teva, whether it be your target customers, which we have a different way we approach them, or whether it be your non-target customers. And as you know, in order to strengthen our foundation, there's different things and levers you can change, right? So obviously you have portfolio and pricing, people and process. You guys have to experiment. That's what we're doing a lot as well, and I'll show you some of the experiments we're doing now with some numbers behind it. and obviously your customers and what is digital. And really, I'm trying to step away from the word digital and really focus on really business transformation. That's really what we're doing today. So just let me jump right into it, because again, I'm from New York and talk is cheap. I don't like theory, I like to talk about numbers. So let's talk about the first use case. This is a specific country where they faced some difficulties, where we had to let go probably 40% of our field force. We had to change our business model a little bit as well, and it's one of the top 5 in Europe. And so we focused on 3 sectors, right? So increasing HCP coverage. So we literally onboarded a marketing automation campaign through Salesforce, where in the past we would have one-off things with MailChimp or some different agencies, where now we're actually creating what's called holistic journeys, right? So we're not doing email blast anymore or SMS blast. We literally create what part is a customer, what segment, what do we want them to do, but then create that holistic journey of, all right, how do we solve that? Just by onboarding that mid of last year, we saw a 9% increase in sales, and we only started off like 10 different journeys, right? So I mean, something as small as that actually had an impact on our P&L. Secondarily is really improve interactions and effectiveness. So the recommendation engine, I spoke a little bit about that yesterday. We have a tool now that recommends when a representative walks into an office, what products we be positioning to our customer. So I will say that the algorithm is still learning. 30% of our reps do use it today, and that's honestly, guys, your first customer. Whenever you start dealing with campaigns like this, is you have to sell that your sales representatives and medical teams first, really on the BHAG and the vision of where we're going. And then when they start seeing it and they think it works, they'll use it. But 30% of I'll be clear, 30% of our reps do use this today. We do know that if they use it, they have a 20% chance more likelihood of getting a sale right then and there. So remember, this rep is walking into a pharmacy, they're positioning a product, bag of products in the past, now they're actually going with a smart tool that knows the ordering history. We have different kind of parameters that kind of predict this is what needs to be next, or cross-sell and upsell, and it works 20% more of the time. So again, reps are starting to see some of these wins, and they know that it's going to financially impact them in a good way, so now we're starting to see more increase here. Web service, this is the lever around e-commerce and self-service. This is a really big one for us as well. We're trying to drive more of our customers to these online platforms. We're understanding, all right, billing and invoices, ordering, cross-selling, upselling. With this, we actually had a really big push. We got 500 of our customers onto the platform, where in the past, again, we had sales representatives walking in, knocking on doors saying, here's the information, but now we're able to channel a lot of that to the online platform. And we are seeing a big increase where, I mean, customers are spending more than 5 minutes on the platform when they're on it. We're seeing repeated usage. We are seeing good feedback. So now what that allows us to do from a business perspective is that frees up times from our sales reps to do other activities, right? So it's up to the business to choose how they want to reallocate that resource. But now we're trying to have that automation in the background to keep our customers fulfilled. And lastly, in this country, customer satisfaction is really key. So as you all know, a lot of times we deal with out-of-stock situations where we just don't have the product. And in this country, out-of-stock can be very detrimental, or at the point where they'll stop ordering from me and go to someone else and won't come back. So we're very transparent. We're taking a different approach. We're being very transparent on communicating with our customers to understand, all right, this is a potential out-of-stock. We have it tiered, and they have an opportunity to act on that. And we'll see some really good numbers there as well. So that's the one use case. So really, how do we potentially focus on, increased coverage, effectiveness to drive the right decisions, and really the self-service and the satisfaction. But the next use case I want to talk about, and we're continuing to see a lot of wins on this, is another Big 5 country, different country, where we faced a similar situation where we had to decrease our S&M spend by X%, but yet we had to grow our base. And this again is on the pharmacy side, where we thought about, all right, well, how do we potentially automate that process of, at the end of each month, in the past we would have a call center or reps knocking on doors saying, hey, buy now, you're within this tier. If you buy X% more, you can actually save a discount, blah, blah, blah. So what we did here is actually create an automated journey. And this runs in the background with anyone touching it now, where around the 23rd of each month, a customer will receive a tailorized email to them saying, hey, Dr. Herron or Pharmacist Herron, you have spent this much to date. This is how much you need to get to the next tier, right? So it's kind of like recommendations on Amazon. It's a bag. So and what we saw is, from a numbers perspective, and I'm having a conversation here, it's within the first 2 months, and it blew our minds, but we saw over $500,000 in additional sales from this interaction. And this was actually calling on non-targeted customers. So you can see up here in the left quadrant, we focus just on the people in the first tier, which we wouldn't even put our reps on. Or obviously, your reps, we stay up here on the top end. But this is just to really understand how can we start leveraging really just good marketing and then good technology to support it and good data on our customers. I will say some of the learnings here when we first started is our data was crap. I mean, we didn't have the customer names right. Half the customers didn't even have names. There was no personalization. It was account level data. So it's a learning process, guys. You have to start somewhere. Walk before you run before you sprint. But what we learned here is this was a good exercise in first cleaning our data, but also testing things out. And that's something we're challenging all our marketing teams across the world is just test it, right? Even down to small A/B testing. That's something that we potentially don't do as much, which we could do more. So this is just the start. It sounds simple, but now we're gonna actually start adding recommendations to it. So not only this is how much you need to spend, but this is the products we recommend potentially you can purchase from a cross-sell, upsell perspective with a recommendation engine, and then we're driving them to our own self-service kind of site. So again, we're trying to automate a lot of our customer interactions on the back end, and we're seeing some quick wins. I will say we've done something similar to other countries where we completely failed, and we failed because it was the data, but also the people didn't believe in the process as well. And that's where the change management really plays a big role on really having people understand kind of where are we going, why are we doing it, and this is not to replace people, but this is really to increase our reach and really better service our customers so we can do more. So I think that's really the goal that we're trying to get here. So I know I'm running up on my time, but kind of what are some of the keys to success? Really be clear on where you're going, what's your BHAG. I think leadership, I read in LinkedIn and the news all the time, many of your companies have a clear stance on what they want to do and where they're going, but that has to resonate within your company. I mean, you have to continue saying that same message over and over again so people understand why do we come to work every day. And I always say this, and people sometimes chuckle, but even this meeting is to get medicines to some patients in need. So you gotta think, we do work in a very, I love this industry, right? Healthcare and technology is a great industry to be in, it's very beneficial. We also have a lot on our backs as well that we need to be responsible for. Remember, every action you take definitely will impact someone else's life, potentially. Next, this is something that I mentioned yesterday around content, right? Engaging and entertaining, educational, emotional. Content is sometimes not enough, right? You need the technology to support it. And usually sometimes people say the reverse, you need the technology to support the content. I feel really strong in this because I do think we do have some really good, whether it's hero content or down to the brand content. But I mean, you need both to work simultaneously, right? They need to be in a cohesive environment. And this is something that we've learned both from having content and not in certain situations, or having the technology and not. You can't have one without the other, but you need that kind of full 360 picture. And one thing I will say here, I know they're probably gonna kick me off the stage soon, but when we work with our marketers, right, and we always talk about, and this was a theme yesterday, during our we try to work on the sales reps, next best actions. What's the next best actions for your marketeers? Whenever we work with the markets, really it comes down to 4 things, right? What are your objectives? What are your goals? Strategically, what are you trying to solve? So that's all the fun projects. Then how do you measure that? You continue to resonate that old P&G model of OGSM. That will help you align all your content, your strategy, and technology to really achieve your business goals. Automation starts with the process, but think it all the way through. So this is something we learned the hard way as well, is sometimes we jump too deep in. And we really need to understand from a bite-sized perspective, where do we start now? What are some of the small tasks we can automate that can then free us up to either invest that money back into the business or put that back into to our sales forces or medical. And lastly, this is something I can't encourage more than any, is really comes down to the people, but strong leadership, but also talent. I mean, that's something by talent, it's not go out and hire all the best digital experts in the world. We need to learn ourselves. And this actually, from a show of hands, how many of you are now taking some kind of online course education around something in your space? Raise your hand, currently. Okay, it's a little better than I thought, but it comes down to the people strategy. That's something I haven't talked about, which I could talk about for hours, but we have a full people strategy. It's not just hiring a full training team in a company and doing these e-learnings. I mean, there's massive open online courses online. You could take a course from any university in the world that's free. So what we're doing is we're actually working with HR to create these programs for our people. But again, it shouldn't be a push, it should be a pull. So at least us in the room all should be always learning because the space is always changing. But also, where we're seeing us succeed and not succeed in countries is having the right digital talent. So encourage your local leads to hire people or really upskill their people, give their people 5 or 6 hours a week, do something that's gonna educate themselves so they have time. This is something that's really key, I think, to the success of everything that we do is the people, and we can't do anything if we don't know. So with that said, I know it's more conversational. I didn't really throw too many big facts out there, but hopefully these use cases and the strategy really put it together on what we're doing at Teva. and where we see ourselves in the future. And to answer my own question yesterday, if we did nothing today, what would 5 years look like? We'd be in trouble, right? Just because, I mean, S&M will stay flat, and we need to be smarter, we need to be optimized, and we need to do more with the resources we have today. So in our situation, if we do nothing now, then we should have luck. So thank you so much, everybody, and look forward to seeing you later.